Our Region's Business is sponsored by PNC for the achiever in you. Our Region's Business. Innovation, transformation, momentum. Improving our communities and driving technologies that will shape our region for generations. The collaboration that brings vitality, prosperity, and life to living. Stay with us for the coming half hour as we examine in depth our region's business. Now, here's your host, Bill Flanagan.
Today on Our Region's Business, a big San Francisco law firm expands into our region. We'll find out why. Plus, Environmental Services Laboratories, a Pittsburgh-based impact company that's expanding here at home. But first, some real gains for Pennsylvania's competitiveness in a tough budget year. State lawmakers and Pennsylvania Governor Tom Corbett wrapped up the budget on time a week ago Saturday. There were no new taxes, but the first tax code bill in 5 years made some changes that will be important to businesses in the Commonwealth, as well as those considering locating here. Just as important, the budget restored proposed cuts to higher education. State Senator Jay Costa was one of the legislative leaders who steered the budget bill to completion. And Barbara McNees is president of the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce, an affiliate of the Allegheny Conference, which co-produces this program. Welcome. Good to see both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and congratulations. This was getting this done on time in the current climate with a revenue situation and everything, so it had to be a real chore.
It had to be a real chore for the legislative leadership. I stand on the sidelines and watch how they do this and advocate for some of the business community's concerns. But really, I compliment the legislative leaders this year in coming together and doing some of the things Bill mentioned in the restoration.
And we were able to do that, and I think largely a direct result of the availability of revenues that, back in February, when we began the budget process, the governor believed, and a lot of folks believed, that we'd have nearly a $720 million budget projected shortfall. That did not turn out that way. It ended up being $160 million by June 30th, and over the course of the month of June, it allowed us the ability to monitor revenues coming in and make determinations about what portion of that we would want to spend and restore to a lot of the programs, some of which you mentioned already.
Well, yeah, one of the big concerns here in the region especially was the higher ed cuts and I guess basic ed cuts. Really good news there as it turned out.
Right.
Yeah.
And the CURE funding, which is very important for us for our research hospitals and universities, along with the higher ed dollars, helping some of the distressed school districts throughout the Commonwealth, I think, was excellent.
And the governor recommended a $27.1 billion budget. At the end of the day, we were able to add back about $570-some million in direct restorations to the line items, almost half of which was the higher education support back to the state-related university, of course, Pitt, Penn State, Lincoln, and Temple, the state systems, and more importantly here to me and to others, the community colleges. We were experiencing a 5% reduction, which has been a significant hit this year. We're fortunate to have all that restored, as well as restoration in a number of other areas of education. The pre-K programs, Healthy Start programs, all restored back to where they were last year, as well as the basic education. The Accountability Block Grant, a very, very successful program for school districts, gives them great flexibility how to use those dollars. And this year we folded in additional dollars for distressed schools, making sure that we put $50 million available for distressed schools, some of which are here in Allegheny County, southwestern PA, but around this Commonwealth, the growing number of distressed schools who are financially distressed going to be an issue as we move forward.
Wow, so you really think about education as an investment in the future.
Yeah.
Well, exactly, and to the point about the community colleges, we have a huge ShaleNet program that we receive federal funding for, and that streams through the community colleges, but it's important that their funding stays solid so that they have the match to do that training, and that's going to be an important industry in the energy.
Let's talk a little bit about sort of the business climate environment. Some surprisingly good news there.
Very good news.
Given all.
You know, as we work on the competitive issues, business taxes in Pennsylvania, we've always ranked pretty high in a not so good way around the business taxes, but over the last several years we've been able to work through that process. This year the single sales factor went from 90% to 100%, which is an important outcome for our companies located here, the manufacturers, the people who actually own the property, and can structure their taxes so that they're getting more opportunities to hire people and not put so much into taxes. Continuing the phase out of the capital stock and franchise tax, that should be done in another 2 years, which will be very good news. Along with some of the tax credits and the changes that were made in the tax credit. The tax code bill were very important for the business community too.
It's been a while since the legislature tackled a tax code bill too. Right?
There's no question it's been a while, but as Barbara indicated, this year we probably had about a dozen, I don't want to say tinkering, but we did a little bit of work in certain areas, but we've also have done some substantive things as well. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the Shell cracker facility tax credit program that was implemented. But again, going back to the education side, we expanded the EITC program, which is the Education Tax Credit Program, by $25 million, established a new EITC called EISC tax credit program for those distressed school districts to allow for that tax credit program to exist. We also did a number of things with respect to transferring of farmlands, an inheritance tax. I think I had something in there dealing with the realty transfer tax and conveying from a parent to a stepchild. Things like that have been done. But you're right, Bill, we have not done it for a number of years. The important thing is, even in a very difficult time, we were able to maintain, for example, the phase out of the capital stock and franchise tax. Back in 2009, we put a 2-year freeze on that phase out. We reinstituted it last year because it's probably one of the most onerous business taxes that exists. So that's just about brought to closure another year or so. You know, that goes back to Governor Tom Ridge's days when we started to phase that out.
Well, some of these, right, been a decade or more, and a lot of them really targeted, I know, by the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber and increasingly in partnership with the Philadelphia Chamber too, because they really affect business investment decisions in Pennsylvania.
That's correct. They do. We're still working on our corporate net income tax rate, and it still being the highest in the country, and have a commitment to look at tax reform, tax code bills, and see how we can change that perception that we're not business friendly. Because with these changes we've made, our ranking has improved. We're about the middle of the pack now. We'd like to be more competitive, as everybody would, in terms of
Senator, we only got about 30 seconds or so left, but I do want to ask you about the whole social services concerns, because there were cuts there. There were concerns not just about cuts, but changing the whole system. Right. So how did the legislature and the governor finally handle that?
The governor proposed a 20% cut in a 7 or 8 line items that collectively make up human service programs. And he also recommended a block grant concept, which would allow the money to go to the counties and they can decide how they want to drive them out. At the end of the day, we ended up taking a 10% reduction. We were able to restore $84 million out of the $164 the governor proposed to cut. In addition, there's no block language in there, but for a small pilot program that would allow possibly 20 counties to participate in a pilot program to allow them to take that chunk of money from those 7 line items and then drive it out in the manner that they deem appropriate. Therefore, they'll be in a position to be able to use that block resources, have great flexibility, and address needs that are going on in that particular county at that time. All
right, well, some real progress and certainly a much better picture than anybody had the right to expect last February. Senator Jay Costa, Barbara McNees from the Pittsburgh Chamber, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Next up, Environmental Services Laboratories and the impact it's having on our region. Stay with us.